Welcome to Synagogues of West Virginia, Part 1. Yes, West Virginia, there is a Jewish presence, although it is gradually shrinking. The camera is looking at Temple Beth El in Beckley, West Virginia, a town of a little less than 18,000 residents. The synagogue structure was built in 1935. The congregation was at its peak in the 1960s when there were about 60 Jewish families. Today there may be about 30 families, and they are drawn from all areas. It's all about the economy, or its lack of it. This Reformed temple has services one Friday night a month and utilizes a student rabbi to officiate. Our second stop is in Bluefield, West Virginia, which sits near the border with Virginia. It has a population of a little more than 10,000, but is part of a metropolitan area of over 100,000. It is also home to Congregation Ahavat Shalom, which in English means peace-loving. This Reformed congregation was founded in 1902. There has been a steady decline in membership. As of 2 years ago, there were about 18 families committed to the synagogue, which utilizes a visiting rabbi once or twice a month for Friday evening services. We shift over to Charleston, West Virginia, which is the state capital and largest city with about 50,000 residents. The camera is staring at Temple Israel, which was founded in 1873. The Hebrew words on the building is a verse in the Torah, which in Hebrew is Ehya Asher Ehya, which is translated into English as I am what I am, or I will be what I be, as God is, was, is, and will always be. James D. Cohn has been the rabbi of this Reformed temple since 2009. Temple Israel also goes by the name of Congregation B'nai Israel. It has been at the location shown here since 1960. Shabbat services are held on Friday evenings. It is not difficult to have a hard time finding this location, as there happens to be a Kanawha Boulevard east, west, southeast, and southwest, and they all hug along the Kawana River. There is another Jewish house of worship in Charleston, and it's for those looking for a more traditional practice. We're talking about Congregation B'nai Jacob. It holds services every morning of the week, and other than on Shabbat, it also has evening services Monday through Wednesday. Its spiritual leader is Rabbi Victor Urecki. Huntington has a little less than 50,000 residents, and it's home to B'nai Shalom congregation, a Reformed temple. At first, in the late 1880s, there was officially a Congregation Ohev Shalom, an Orthodox shul. In 1891, it switched to the Reform affiliation. The building shown here was erected in 1926. At its zenith, the synagogue had about 175 families in the early 1950s. A rapid decline occurred in the late 1960s and early 70s, so that Ohev Shalom and another synagogue in Huntington, B'nai Israel, merged together to become now B'nai Shalom. B'nai Israel had started out in 1910 as an Orthodox synagogue, but had slowly evolved into a conservative affiliated one. In order to facilitate the differences in rituals between the merged congregations, this Reformed temple allows for conservative practice at Saturday morning Shabbat service and Sunday morning weekday service. Here is the site of Congregation B'nai Israel, the conservative synagogue, from 1924 through 1975. Its front facade belies any acknowledgement of its original Jewish house of service. But one can see on the side all the stained glass windows with Jewish stars at the top. Notes on a couple other synagogues that no longer exist. One was called Tree of Life or Eitz Chaim Synagogue, and it was in Clarksburg, not to be confused with the one in Morgantown. And there was one in Martinsburg that was called Beth Jacob Congregation. It had organized in 1912 and dissolved in 2007. It distributed about $290,000 after the sale of its synagogue building in the following manner. The greatest amount, $135,000, went to Martinsburg's Parks and Recreation. 4 libraries received $20,000 each. 2 other synagogues in small West Virginia towns would receive $30,000 each. $5,000 to the Reform Movement Georgia Cats Berkeley County Historical Society and the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. So ends part 1 of our tour of the Jewish presence in West Virginia. Part 2 to follow. So, bye for now and see you real soon.